Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to head over to Kalmar for this one, and we're having a look at another beer from a brewery that I have been impressed with before, and it's quite cool to have these guys back on the channel actually. If memory serves me correctly, this is going to be review number 4 that I'm doing from these guys. So for this one then we are going to go to Kalmar city, not just the county, and we're having a look at another beer from Ängö Kvartersbryggeri, who release their beers under the name Ängöl. So this one is the West Coast IPA. It comes in at 6.5% ABV, and this beer was released by Systembolaget on the 1st of September 2020 as part of the Lokal Småskaligt assortment for that month. So yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out. I have been complaining that there's not been enough West Coast IPAs on the market recently, and yeah, when I saw that these guys were releasing one, I thought, you know, I have to have a go at this. The last beer that I reviewed from these guys was the New England IPA, which was quite nice. I also reviewed the Blå Berliner, which was a really nice blueberry Berliner Weisse, and then the first beer I reviewed was back in 2017 or so, and that was called the Kalatiders, which if I remember rightly, that was it was supposed to be a Dunkel lager actually, but it had a little bit of an English bitter type quality to it, to be honest with you. But yeah, definitely cool to return to these guys after a little while. It's been a few months actually since I reviewed the New England IPA, so hopefully this turns out to be a nice beer as well, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on it as well. Really curious to see how this one turns out, one of my favourite sub-styles actually. So yeah, let's see how we get on then. As always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Ängö Kvartersbryggeri and their Ängö range before. If you want to see more of those, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out all the social media down below as well, and as well as the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that is being added to very, very regularly, because there's so many good beers in Sweden these days. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Ängö Kvartersbryggeri then, and Ängöl. So Ängö Kvartersbryggeri, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Kalmar city in Kalmar county, which is the kind of modern day term I guess for the area, but it's also the historic province of Småland in southeastern Sweden, and the brewery was founded back in 2010 by Kalmar local Johan Håkansson. So he'd been homebrewing since 1993 and got good feedback for his beers, and that just really kind of pushed him to go commercial with it and have a go at it, which he did, and he's done very well. But the brewery was originally based in an old farmhouse in the Ängö district of Kalmar, hence the name, and this used to be home to a company called N.J. Blomqvist Tunnbinderi, which produced casks and kegs for local breweries around the Kalmar area, which is pretty cool actually. But this company went out of business in 1968, and thereafter the building was used simply as a storage warehouse. It underwent extensive renovations between 2009 and 2010 to become home to the brewery, and it was equipped with a 1600 litre copper-clad kettle from Austria, and the fermentation tanks were put on the next floor up, and this facility gave them an annual output of around 100,000 litres per annum. Over the following years they continued to just expand gradually, but in April of 2016 they moved to a new premises, which was the old Yemax factory in Polhelmsgatan in the city, and I've actually driven past this. It is kind of in an quite an industrial area actually, but this gives them an annual output of around 500,000 litres of beer per year, and that means that the beers can be distributed nationally, hence why I'm now able to get these over in Skåne. I don't know how, when I tried the first one, I'm not sure how how widely distributed they were actually. But over the last few years these guys have been attending lots of different beer festivals, adding new beers to their portfolio, and as of September 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced in the region of 35 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. So yeah, quite a, I think still a fairly regional brewery I guess you could say. You probably get these beers really widely throughout Kalmar county. I do remember seeing them in a lot of pubs and things. I think there's a lot of of bars are selling these beers on keg actually. But yeah, you can order these beers every month through the Lokala Småskaligt assortment. They are releasing stuff fairly regularly through that local release at the start of every month. So I'm curious to see what these guys actually put out over the next little while. I've never tried a lager, or well, I suppose I've tried the Karateras was a lager, but I've not had like a Helles lager or an Imperial Stout or anything from these guys. So probably having tried a New England, a West Coast, a Berliner Weisse, and a Dunkel lager, probably the next port of call should be a stout or a Helles lager or something like that from these guys. So I'm curious to see what they put out there over the next little while. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Ängö Kvartersbryggeri and Ängöl for the moment. If you do want to learn a little bit more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. It is very nicely done. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that's all we can say about that. But let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer then. I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open it up. There you can see, it is actually really quite nice that you can see the sort of California style coastline on the label there, which is really nice. Tells you a little bit about the beer on the side as well. Just a plain gold bottle cap on this, which is what we've had from Ängöl before. It would be quite cool if they had the black bottle caps and then just the white Ängöl across it actually. So maybe something to for them to add in the future. But it says Västkust India Pale Ale and fruitig IPA som domineras av humle från amerikanska västkusten. So yeah, an IPA dominated by hops from the American West Coast, full med tropiska toner och något kräftigare beska for balancing. So yeah, basically saying it's full of tropical tones and something crafty, a sort of crafty bitterness, I think it's trying to say, for balance. So yeah, should be quite cool. So 6.5% ABV this one. I hope this one does have a good little bit of bitterness to it. You can see the bottle is sweating a little bit because of the lovely summer that we're having here in Sweden. Even though it's kind of the middle of September, we're still getting very good weather, I have to say, during the day. But yeah, 6.5% IPA this one. Without further ado, let's get it out and we will get on with the tasting. 6.5%er. Kind of standard these days, the old West Coast IPAs, and this one actually is full to the brim. It's right up to here. So I didn't expect that, but yeah, more beer, it's all good. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then, hopefully. This is another nice beer. I need to have a look actually and see what other beers these guys have. Maybe around Christmas time they will have an Imperial Stout or something like that, so I'll make sure that I review that for you. A little teeny, no, I think that's just condensation actually, yeah, that's just condensation. But yeah, we need to see about getting a stout or something from these guys, something properly from the dark end of the spectrum for the next review. But yeah, let's go for this in the meantime. I love a good West Coast IPA. So as you can see, this beer has poured with about somewhere between a quarter and a third finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head. That is fading away just to be a very nice kind of thin foamy layer. You can see the beer in terms of its colour is a lovely kind of lighter amber note there. It probably looks quite yellow on the camera, but if you shine the light through it, it does have a nice light amber tone to it. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there, and the head, as I say, has just faded away to be a very thin foamy layer. If I put my fingers behind the glass, I'm not sure if it is just condensation, but the beer itself is actually fairly hazy, but it's a kind of natural haze that you would normally expect from the West Coasters, nowhere near as hazy as you're going to find from a New England IPA. But yeah, it certainly looks the part. Let's have a look at the aroma and see how we get on. Nothing particularly surprising about this beer when we consider what style and what sub-style it is. So let's take a look at that. Ooh, yeah, this one smells quite nice. There's something oddly familiar about the hops in this one. Yeah, so straight away with this beer, you can smell that lovely kind of slightly more bready kind of base to it actually. There's a good bit of that kind of white bready character coming out of it. There's a little bit of bread crustiness in there. You can smell some sweet caramel. As you kind of go a bit further out, you get a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit sort of thing. Yeah, it's definitely got that sort of bready but also quite sweet malty backbone that you expect of a West Coast IPA. It does come across as quite nostalgic, this one actually, kind of old school, but that's what we want. That is what we want. I'm hoping this one does have a good bit of IBU to it. That's the one thing that's disappointed me with some of the more modern takes on the West Coast IPAs recently is they've just been too low in the bitterness. They've been producing them with like 40 IBUs and stuff. I'm like, no, West Coast IPA has to have at least 70 in my mind. Yeah, for me, this one, it's got that classic malt base to it. The malty notes are really well done in this. Like I say, a sweet caramel, a little bit of a toasty note to that as well. Some sweeter biscuity notes like McVitie's Digestive. A little bit of a kind of bread crusty note, kind of white, mixture of white and brown bread in there. But the malt base on this one for a West Coaster is pretty damn authentic, I have to say. So thumbs up to Ängöl for the malt base on this one. It does come across as pretty damn authentic. Yeah, I think this is going to be quite nice actually. But yeah, in terms of the hoppy side of things then, there's a wee touch of earthiness out of this one, but not too much I would say. Good little bit of floral aromaticity, and you've also got some nice lighter grassiness there as well. But I would say that with the green side of the hops, it really leans more towards the kind of floral, sort of almost slightly spicy side of things actually. So there is a good little bit of a kind of florally spicy note coming out of this beer, which I do like. But yeah, the aroma from this one, as I say, on that side is very, very nice. There is something a wee bit nostalgic about this beer. I wonder, could it be like a sort of Citra Mosaic Centennial that we're getting out of this? Maybe a bit of Columbus as well. There is something that's oddly familiar about this beer. I think this one is brewed to be a sort of classic West Coaster actually. Just seeing, does it actually say what hops are in it? No, and it didn't say anything about that on Untappd when I checked it out earlier either. But yeah, there is something just quite familiar about this. I think this might be a sort of Citra Mosaic Columbus type note actually. There is a wee bit of there is just something that's quite distinct about the floral characters in this one that tells me there might be a bit of Columbus in here. It's just got a little bit of that distinctive, almost spiciness to the West Coast. To the bitterness, sorry, to the kind of floral aromatic side of the bitterness. But yeah, on the fruity side of things, it's definitely got quite an orangey leaning note to it. It could be Amarillo actually. It could also be, if there's, I don't know, Amarillo's always a bit more kind of oily and orangey, whereas Mosaic is a bit more bright and tangerine-y. Not sure actually whether it would be Mosaic or Amarillo that would be in this one. There's something that tells me that the brightness of it though, there's just something familiar about it, and we don't get too many beers with Amarillo in it actually these days. But yeah, that's another interesting point to make about this beer. So yeah, the aroma coming out of this one on the fruity side of things is quite orangey for me. You do get a few tropical notes in there. It could be Simcoe that's in here as well, come to think of it. You know, it's got a bit of it has got a wee bit of that more pungenty passion fruit. There's a softer kind of mango-y note to the beer as well. And yeah, it goes together, as I say, very, very nicely. I like how I do like how that goes together. So for me, a really nice, solid New England IPA. A bit of mango, a little bit of a kind of passion fruity note, some nice juicy oranges, and maybe, I do want to say, there is something that's telling me there could be a bit of Centennial in here as well. It's got a little bit of that sort of lemony, zesty kind of thing going on as well actually, so I like how that goes together. So yeah, take a bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this one. It is pretty solid and pretty authentic in my mind, but we're going to have a taste of this one now and see how we get on. So this one is the West Coast IPA from the Ängöl range at Ängö Kvartersbryggeri in Kalmar City over in Kalmar County in the southeast of Sweden. Definitely nice to have another Ängöl beer for you here on the channel. Let's get stuck in. Sláinte, skål! That is pretty nice actually, pretty tasty beer. It does have a good little bit of bitterness to it as well, but I think it's going to take a wee bit of time to kind of build up properly right enough. Yeah, I like how this, I do like how this one goes together. It does actually remind me, I had one of their IPAs, I don't know which one it was right enough, but I had one of their IPAs in a restaurant over in Kalmar. It was I can't remember what the pub was called actually. I just found it on Rate Beer and went there for a burger with my friend. But yeah, it was actually, it actually came across really nicely. But yeah, it reminds me, this beer does remind me of that actually. So I like how this one, I do like how this one goes together. So thumbs up to Ängö once again. Yeah, it really does remind me of another one that I've had before. So maybe they are using part of the same base recipe or something. There's something a wee bit familiar about this beer. But yeah, I like it, and that's the main thing. So yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this one then. So straight away, across the middle of the palate, you get a nice little bit of that pale malty, white bready kind of thing. That goes right across the middle of the tongue. As you go towards the back third of the palate, you do get a bit of a thicker kind of note come out of this one. You can feel a little bit of, there's almost a little touch of a wheaty bitiness to this. Does it have a wee bit of wheat in it, this? No, it doesn't, just straight up barley malt. Yeah, I thought it might have had a wee bit of a kind of white bready character to it, but yeah, it does have a wee bit of a more grainy bitiness on the back third of the palate there. And the bready base that this beer has, it is a kind of blend between a sort of brown bready, a kind of wholemealy bread, and a white bread actually. So I like how that goes together, to be honest with you. But yeah, as I say, the back third of the palate, it just feels a little bit thicker. You get a few more kind of grainy dots about on it as well. But as you move into the middle third of the tongue, you've got that bready base and the kind of bread crusty notes to it, I think. But on top of it, you've got this a little kind of oily layer almost, and that's where the kind of brown sugary notes come out of the beer, which is covering up the booze, of course. But in the very centre, that middle third of your tongue, that's where you get the really kind of sweet caramel there. And as you move further out from that, it gets, pardon me, a little bit more kind of biscuity in its character. You do get a little bit more of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing coming out of this one, which is nice. Yeah. And yeah, I do like how that side of the beer goes together, come to think of it. Yeah, it is kind of, it's the malty side of this one is pretty nicely done actually. It is a more slightly bready leaning West Coast IPA, I would say. It's not the sweetest and oiliest one that I've come across. Some of them can be a bit lighter and more biscuity, but I find this one really quite smooth and quite bready in its characteristics. But the bit of brown sugar that's there in the middle of the palate, covering up the booze, is nicely done. And as I say, the wee bit of biscuity, that McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing that the beer has as well, is quite nice. Malt base is very straight up, but it does complement the beer really quite nicely, and you can't ask for much more than that. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you get a little bit of earthiness out of this one. That makes me think that the orangey side of things is more from a Mosaic rather than Amarillo. Amarillo, more oily orange, right enough, but then Mosaic is the one that always gave you a little touch of earthiness. But yeah, I think the hoppy side of this beer, I'm trying to think about the green side of the hops in this beer, because it's quite, how would we say, it's quite, it is more along the lines of, it does have a good bit of spiciness to it, I would say. There's a nice little bit of that sort of Columbus spice. I think I was right about the Columbus beer in this one, to be honest with you. Camera control's going a bit crazy. But yeah, I think if you come further forward along the side of the palate there, you do get a little bit more of a kind of floral aromaticity out of the beer, and it is slightly spicy, so I do wonder about Columbus as a base hop in this beer. I really think a bit of that is there. But as you go round the front curve of the palate, you've got a nice, you have got a nice little bit of grassiness to this one as well. But I really think Columbus, I do think there's a bit of Columbus in here as a bittering hop. And yeah, on the front third of your tongue, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters come out of the beer. So I like how this goes together. And yeah, the fruity side of this beer, it's got that nice oiliness that you expect of a West Coast IPA. I think that's one of the key elements actually. So yeah, for me, the fruitiness that comes out of this is pretty nice. Yeah, let's look at that then. So as you go towards the back of that front third of your palate, there is a wee bit of a darker kind of grapefruity note out of this one. That tells me that there could be a wee bit of Citra in this beer. I've got a feeling that this might just be Citra. It might be Citra and a Mosaic that's in this one, along with a bit of Columbus. I've got a feeling that that's what it is in here. But yes, you go towards the back of the front third of your palate, there is a wee bit of that. There is a wee bit of that kind of darker grapefruity, almost passion fruity quality. It could be Citra, Simcoe and Mosaic actually. I think that there's something that's oddly familiar about this, and the tropical fruit feels just a bit thicker, and I think Simcoe usually adds just a little bit of thickness and also softness to the tropical fruit as well, so could be something like that that's in here. But yeah, a little bit of a kind of darker passion fruit, I think that's more likely to be Citra. As you come further forward you can feel it evolve to it kind of smoothens out, and then it starts to become a little bit more mango-like. There's a few softer notes in there, these kind of apricot-y, pineapple-y type. I think more apricot than pineapple in this one, to be honest. But then yes, you reach the front part of that front third of your tongue, there's a distinctly more oily, tangerine-y, orangey kind of quality coming out of this one. I'm pretty certain that there's Mosaic in this. 90% sure there's Mosaic in this, and I think it's either Citra or Citra and Simcoe that's the other kind of hop in this one. As you reach the very front edge of the tongue, it's a nice lighter grassiness, and there is a wee touch of a zesty note to this one, but the centennial kind of lemony notes that I was picking up in the aroma, those don't sort of materialise in the flavour, if you like. But yeah, it's a very kind of distinctive, it's just got a bit of nostalgia about this for me. It comes across as a very kind of classic West Coasty IPA, but within that sort of sub-style, if you like, I'd say it's got more of a smoother breadiness, a little bit of a kind of biscuity, kind of caramelly quality to it, and yeah, I mean it's definitely got a nice level of how do you say, a little bit of a kind of kick to it almost. So yeah, it's nicely done. As I say, one of the more bready West Coast IPAs I've come across, but it's got the oily fruitiness, and it does have a wee bit of bitterness to it. It's not the most bitter West Coast IPA you're going to come across, in fairness. But yeah, let's have a look at the mouthfeel of this one then, and kind of round this off. So yeah, I would say that this beer, in terms of its mouthfeel, I'd say that it's kind of at the top end of mid-bodied. Carbonation is really smooth. It really does have the oiliness down to a T actually. The level of oiliness that you get with this one is exactly what you would want from a West Coast IPA. So yeah, the mouthfeel I think is very nice in this. I like it. Like I said, one of the more bready IPAs. It does have a bit more smoothness to it than some of the other ones I've come across because of that breadiness, but it does have a nice degree of oiliness to it as well actually. But yeah, in terms of the hoppy bitterness, I think this one has to be, I think it's maybe about 60 IBUs. I don't think it's, I'd be surprised if it's more than that. 50 or 60 IBUs in this one. I'm tempted to say 60, to be honest with you. You do get a nice little bit of that Columbus spiciness to it. It has got a wee bit more bitterness than a New England one, but a lot of breweries are being a bit conservative when it comes to the bitterness because people are more used to the New England IPA these days. They are used to a lower bitterness and a more kind of juicy, fruity quality. But this one, I can understand why they would do that. If you put a bit more Columbus in this one, in the bittering hop, maybe if they keep this beer as a regular. And I'm glad, as I say, that we're seeing more West Coast IPAs coming back into a number of breweries, because they just disappeared, and it's a terrible shame. I've been complaining about that for a long time, but quite a few Swedish breweries have been trying it over the last few months. But yeah, this one definitely has a little bit more of the bitterness you expect, but I can understand why breweries are a bit conservative in that kind of bitterness actually. But yeah, I think about 60-ish IBUs with this beer. Like I said, the malt base is very smooth, but there is a degree of sweetness to it. I think the beer it remains quite smooth, but you do get a little bit more sweetness out of it the further that you go into the aftertaste, and you've got a nice oiliness to the fruity qualities that you get out of this beer as well. A wee bit of juiciness, but a wee bit of a kind of oily, fruity character as well. But overall, I think this is a very nicely done West Coast IPA. One of the more bready examples, as I said, but yeah, I'll give Ängöl a thumbs up for this one. I like this, and it does remind me, as I said, of one of the other IPAs that I had from these guys in a restaurant, but I honestly can't remember what it was called. I think it might have just been called the Ängöl IPA, to be honest with you. So yeah, but yeah, quite a nostalgic one this. I think Citra, Simcoe, Mosaic and Columbus are the hops in this one. Do let me know if someone's watching from the brewery. Do let me know the hop profile in the in the comment section below or whatever. It's always interesting to know these things. I love playing Guess the Hops with IPAs as well. But yeah, a really nice beer, this one. I enjoyed this. If you get the chance to try it, have a go at it. I think this is a solidly done West Coast IPA, and it's cool to see that Ängöl are releasing new beers quite regularly actually. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. As always, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Ängö Kvartersbryggeri and their Ängöl range as well. Do let me know if there are any interesting and new breweries propping up in Kalmar, Småland, Öland. I was over there last year, like around September, October or so, and it was very nice actually, so I do recommend you go and visit Kalmar and Öland. And yeah, do let me know if there's any new interesting breweries over there. You will actually see a beer from Öland in a couple of videos time, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But yeah, awesome to return to Ängö Kvartersbryggeri for this beer, and I hope that you guys enjoyed my take on this one. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Ängö Kvartersbryggeri, and I will catch you guys later. This was the Ängöl West Coast IPA, 6.5% ABV, released in September 2020, and it turned out pretty nicely. Sláinte, skål, cheers.